The text on my phone read 6:59 a.m. when the email arrived. Termination. Effective immediately. My stomach dropped as I stood in the elevator of the company I had given 7 years to. The doors opened to the 30th floor, and there stood Jack, our head of HR, with 2 security guards. "Lourdes, I am sorry, but you have been terminated as of an hour ago," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. What he did not know was that by 2 p.m. that same day, I would be signing papers to become his boss. I had arrived at the office exceptionally early that morning, 6:30 a.m. to be exact. The Morgan acquisition was my baby. For 18 months, I had worked tirelessly, building relationships with their executives, analyzing financial statements, and crafting the perfect presentation for today's board meeting. The acquisition would expand our market share by 20% and bring in technology we desperately needed. I was so excited that I barely slept the night before, reviewing every slide one final time. When the elevator doors opened to reveal Jack flanked by 2 burly security guards, my mind refused to process what was happening. Their faces were grim, almost apologetic. Jack extended his hand, asking for my company badge. "There must be some mistake," I said, clutching my laptop bag. "I have the Morgan acquisition presentation at 10 a.m. The board is waiting for my recommendation." Jack cleared his throat, producing a manila folder. "I need you to sign these papers, acknowledging your termination." The guards escorted me to my office where a cardboard box already sat on my desk, containing my personal items. Someone had already packed my things. The family photo with my parents at the Grand Canyon. The small cactus Ashley had given me on my birthday. The award for Executive of the Year I had received just 3 months ago. "What is going on?" I demanded, my voice rising as I flipped through the termination papers. "Performance issues? I have never received a single warning." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "These concerns have been documented for months. Nathan has personally signed off on everything." Nathan Pierce, our CEO. The man who had personally recruited me from our competitor 7 years ago. The man who had congratulated me just yesterday on bringing the Morgan deal to the finish line. As the security guards hovered nearby, I attempted to log into my computer, only to find my access already revoked. My email. My files. Everything I had worked on. Gone. In a daze, I was marched through the open floor plan, past the stunned faces of colleagues I had mentored, projects I had championed, and toward the elevator I had ascended just minutes earlier. The humiliation burned through my chest as whispers followed me. My phone buzzed in my pocket as the elevator doors closed. A text from Ashley, my assistant. "Nathan altered your Morgan presentation. He is taking credit for your structure. Something is wrong." I leaned against the elevator wall, my mind racing. The timing was not a coincidence. One day before the final Morgan acquisition papers would be signed. After all my work, Nathan was pushing me out to claim the victory for himself. A memory flashed through my mind. Nathan asking unusually detailed questions about the acquisition structure last week. His sudden interest in the contract language. The way he had insisted on reviewing the final presentation just as a formality. 6 months ago, I had worked with our legal team to create a special clause in the acquisition framework, protecting the deal architects from sudden removal. Just standard language, the lawyers had assured me. But I had insisted on its inclusion after watching another executive get pushed out right before his big win. I never imagined I would be the one needing that protection. As I gathered my belongings in the lobby, I noticed a document in the termination folder that Jack had not asked me to sign. It had fallen loose from the others. Nathan's signature was at the bottom, dated yesterday. The document detailed the restructuring plan after the Morgan acquisition. My position was eliminated, but more shocking was the plan to dismantle my entire division and reassign my team members across the company. The people I had hired, trained, and mentored would be scattered. The pain of betrayal began transforming into something else. Determination. Nathan had made a critical mistake. He had shown his hand before the game was over. I found myself at the coffee shop across from our office building, staring at the termination papers spread across the small table. The initial shock was wearing off. replaced by a cold analytical focus I usually reserved for complex negotiations. My phone rang. It was Tara from finance, one of the few people I truly trusted in the company. "What the hell is happening?" she whispered. "Nathan called an emergency meeting. He told everyone you tried to sabotage the Morgan acquisition. No one believes it, but he is showing emails. Lourdes, they look real." I thanked her for the call and hung up, my hands shaking with rage. Forged emails. I examined the termination papers more carefully. The performance reviews had my signature, but I had never seen them before. The dates went back months, documenting warnings I had never received, meetings that had never happened. Another text from Ashley. Nathan scheduled private meeting with Morgan CEO immediately after board meeting. CFO, James is helping him. Check your personal email. I opened my phone to find an email thread Ashley had forwarded from her company account. My breath caught as I read the exchange between Nathan and James, our CFO, dating back 3 weeks. "Once we remove Lourdes, we can restructure the entire acquisition," Nathan had written. "The board trusts her too much. With her gone, we can implement the cost-cutting measures they have been resistant to." James had replied, "Her team is loyal to her. We need to break them up immediately after the announcement." I closed my eyes, remembering the countless meetings with Morgan executives. How they had specifically requested my leadership on the transition team. How I had promised them continuity and support. Now Nathan planned to break those promises the moment the papers were signed. Then I remembered something else. A clause I had insisted on including in our company bylaws when I joined the executive committee 4 years ago. It specified that any executive who structured an acquisition maintained authority over its implementation for 6 months, regardless of position changes. It was intended to prevent the chaos of leadership transitions during sensitive integrations. I called Patricia, my mentor from the industry, who had retired 2 years ago. She had always seen 3 moves ahead on the corporate chessboard. "This is not about the Morgan acquisition," Patricia said after I explained the situation. "This is about control. Nathan feels threatened by you, by your relationships with the board, with key clients. The Morgan deal is just his excuse to get rid of you before you become too powerful." "What can I do?" I asked, feeling the walls closing in. "He has already kicked me out." "Fight back," she said simply. "And I know just the lawyer who can help you." While waiting for Patricia's lawyer contact, I reviewed the financial records Ashley had somehow managed to send me. Nathan's plan went beyond just taking credit for my work. Post-acquisition, he planned to dismantle departments led by my allies, consolidate power under executives loyal to him, and implement extreme cost-cutting measures that would eliminate hundreds of jobs. This was no longer just about my career. It was about protecting the company I had helped build, the people I had brought on board, and the promises I had made to Morgan. My phone buzzed with another message from Ashley. Board meeting started. "Nathan completely changed your presentation." Morgan representatives looked confused on the video call. The realization hit me like a lightning bolt. Nathan had miscalculated. He thought removing me would give him free rein, but he had not considered that Morgan had requested me specifically. My relationship with their team was a key factor in their decision to accept our offer over competitors. I made my decision. I would fight back not just for my position, but for control of the company's future. Nathan Pierce had started this war. I would finish it. Within an hour, I was sitting in the sleek downtown office of Walter Scott, the corporate attorney Patricia had recommended. His reputation for handling high-stakes corporate disputes was legendary. They violated at least 3 corporate governance principles, Walter said, reviewing the documents I had provided. The termination process was improper. The board was not fully informed. And based on these communications, there appears to be intentional misrepresentation to shareholders. "What can we do?" I asked. "The board meeting is happening now." "Did you know," Walter said, removing his glasses, "that 3 board members were not informed of your termination? I just confirmed that with my contact on the board. Gerald Thompson, Diane Miller, and Frank Roberts were told this was a mutual separation planned for next month." I sat up straighter. Gerald was the board chair, and Diane had been my advocate since I joined the company. Walter continued reviewing my employment contract, suddenly stopping at a clause on page 17. This is interesting. There is a challenge clause here. Any executive termination can be formally challenged within 24 hours, during which time the executive retains official access to meetings regarding their areas of responsibility. I remembered insisting on that clause after watching another executive, Thomas, get wrongfully terminated right before his project's completion. I never imagined I would be invoking it myself. So I can go back? I asked, hardly believing it was possible. Not only can you go back, Walter smiled, but you have the right to attend the board meeting happening right now. It concerns the Morgan acquisition, which is unquestionably your area of responsibility. While Walter prepared the legal paperwork, I received a call from Diane Miller, the board member who had championed my promotion last year. This is unofficial, she said in a hushed voice, but I needed to warn you. Nathan presented a completely different version of the acquisition than what we had reviewed previously. The terms are much more aggressive. Morgan representatives look uncomfortable. Can you send me the presentation? I asked. Already did, she replied. Check your personal email. And Lourdes? Several of us have questions about the timing of your departure. This does not feel right. Ashley continued providing updates from inside the meeting. The Morgan team was raising concerns about leadership changes. 2 board members were asking pointed questions about my sudden departure. Nathan was becoming defensive. Then came the most crucial piece of information. Morgan had a clause in their contract requiring my specific involvement in the transition for at least 6 months. They were questioning whether the deal could proceed without this assurance. Walter looked up from his phone. I just spoke with Gerald. He has agreed to hear your challenge if you can get to the office within the hour. This is highly unusual, but given the circumstances with Morgan, he feels it is necessary. As Walter finalized the legal challenge, I made another call. 6 months earlier, an investment group had approached me about backing a potential leadership change at the company. I had declined at the time, believing in the company's direction under the current leadership. Now, I retrieved their contact information. Jordan, this is Lourdes Martinez. Remember that conversation we had about the future of the company? I think it is time to revisit it. Jordan Bradley's response was immediate. We have been watching the situation closely. In fact, we have already been quietly acquiring shares. We were planning to approach you next month. How much of the company do you control? I asked directly. Currently, 12%, he replied. But we have commitments that could take us to 28% by the end of the week. Combined with my own shares and those of executives loyal to me, we could potentially reach 40%, not a majority, but enough to force serious changes. I need to move today, I said. Right now. What do you have in mind? Jordan asked. A 2-pronged approach. Legal challenge to the termination while simultaneously assembling the financial backing for a potential takeover. There was a pause before Jordan spoke again. We can have the paperwork ready within 2 hours. But Lourdes, once we start this, there is no going back. Are you sure you want to take this step? I thought of Nathan's betrayal, of the employees who would lose their jobs, of the promises to Morgan that would be broken. I am sure, I said. Prepare everything. I will see you after the board meeting. At precisely 11:30 a.m., Walter and I stood at the security desk in the lobby of the building I had been escorted out of just 4 hours earlier. The security guards exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly recognizing me. Miss Martinez has been terminated, one guard said, reaching for his phone. I will need to call upstairs. Walter smoothly placed legal documents on the counter. Miss Martinez is exercising her right to challenge under Section 4.3 of her employment agreement. This gives her the legal right to attend the board meeting currently in progress, as it directly concerns her area of responsibility. The guard looked confused but called his supervisor. After several tense minutes, we were issued temporary badges. As we rode the elevator to the 30th floor, I mentally prepared for what was coming. The boardroom would be full of surprised faces, some hostile, some relieved. Nathan would try to have me removed immediately. Remember, Walter said quietly, Stay calm and stick to the facts. We have the law on our side. The executive assistant outside the boardroom nearly dropped her coffee when she saw me. Without waiting for her to announce us, I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Nathan stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence, his presentation of my acquisition strategy projected on the wall behind him, his face drained of color. Board members turned in their chairs, expressions ranging from shock to curiosity. On the large video screen showing the virtual participants, I could see the Morgan executives leaning forward with sudden interest. "What is the meaning of this?" Nathan demanded, quickly recovering. "Security!" Walter stepped forward, placing our legal documents on the table. "Miss Martinez is exercising her right to challenge her termination under the terms of her employment agreement. As this meeting directly concerns the Morgan acquisition, which she structured and led, she has every right to be present." Gerald Thompson, the board chair, picked up the documents. After a moment of review, he looked up at Nathan. "This appears to be in order. The challenge clause is quite clear." "This is outrageous," Nathan sputtered. "She was terminated for cause this morning, and she has 24 hours to challenge that termination," Gerald replied evenly, "during which time she retains access to meetings concerning her areas of responsibility. The Morgan acquisition is unquestionably her project." Nathan turned to the company's general counsel, who reluctantly nodded confirmation of the legal position. "Since Miss Martinez is here," Gerald continued, "and given the concerns raised by the Morgan team about leadership continuity, I believe we should hear what she has to say." I took a deep breath and moved to the side of the room where everyone could see me. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to address the Morgan representatives directly." I turned to the video screen, where 5 executives from Morgan were watching with rapt attention. "As you know, I have led this acquisition process from the beginning. The sudden change in leadership you are witnessing was not planned or communicated to you as a courtesy, which I deeply regret." The lead Morgan representative, Susan Taylor, spoke up. "Miss Martinez, we were told you had resigned to pursue other opportunities. Is that not the case?" "No, it is not," I replied firmly. "I was terminated without warning this morning, less than 24 hours before our final signing." Murmurs spread around the board table as the implications sank in. I continued. "More concerning is that the acquisition presentation you are seeing today has been significantly altered from the one we all agreed upon. The original terms, which you approved last week, have been changed without your knowledge or consent." Nathan cut in. "These are baseless accusations from a disgruntled employee." I calmly opened my laptop, which Ashley had smuggled out to me. I have copies of the original presentation and term sheet, with the track changes showing exactly when and how they were altered. Gerald gestured to the IT person to connect my laptop to the display. Side by side, the differences were stark and undeniable. The original balanced approach I had crafted had been replaced with aggressive terms that heavily favored our company at Morgan's expense. Susan Taylor's voice came through clearly on the video conference. "These are not the terms we agreed to. We cannot proceed with an acquisition under these altered conditions, and frankly, we have serious concerns about continuing without Miss Martinez's involvement. Our agreement specifically requires her leadership during the transition period." Nathan attempted to regain control of the meeting. "This is merely a misunderstanding. We can certainly discuss adjustments to the terms." "It is not a misunderstanding," I countered, "when changes are made deliberately and without disclosure." I pulled up the email thread Ashley had forwarded, showing Nathan and CFO James discussing the planned changes after my removal. The boardroom fell silent as the emails displayed on screen. Nathan's face contorted with rage and disbelief. "How did you get those?" he demanded. "Those are private communications. They were forwarded to me by a concerned employee who believed the board should know the truth," I replied calmly. "And they clearly show intent to misrepresent the acquisition terms after removing me from the process." Gerald cleared his throat. "I think we need to take a brief recess to process this information. Nathan, I would like to speak with you privately. The rest of the board will reconvene in 30 minutes. As people began to stand, Nathan made one last desperate attempt. "Before we break, there is something else the board should see." He nodded to James, who produced a folder. James handed out copies of what appeared to be emails from my account, showing me disparaging Morgan executives and suggesting we could squeeze them for more concessions once they are committed. "These emails paint a very different picture of Miss Martinez's relationship with Morgan," Nathan said triumphantly. I examined the printouts calmly, then looked up. "These are fabricated. I never wrote these messages." "They came directly from the server," James insisted. "Then perhaps we should examine the metadata," Walter suggested, "and compare it with the original emails I took the precaution of preserving months ago, when Miss Martinez first suspected someone might be accessing her account. I removed a flash drive from my bag. I have maintained secured copies of all my communications regarding the Morgan acquisition, with complete header information and digital signatures that can verify authenticity. I would be happy to submit these for forensic analysis alongside the versions you are presenting." The confidence in my voice made James pale visibly. Nathan's triumphant expression faltered as he realized his evidence might not hold up under scrutiny. Gerald sighed heavily. "We will review all documents during the recess. This meeting is adjourned for 30 minutes. As the board members filed out, several gave me encouraging nods. The Morgan executives asked to speak with me privately, which Gerald approved. In that brief conversation, they confirmed what I had suspected. They had chosen our company specifically because of my approach and reputation. Without me, they were prepared to walk away. The first major battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. During the 30-minute recess, the executive floor buzzed with tension. I could see Nathan and James huddled with the company's general counsel in a glass-walled conference room, gesturing angrily. Board members gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. I remained in the empty boardroom with Walter, preparing for the next phase. Gerald Thompson approached me privately. "This is unprecedented, Lourdes. The board is deeply concerned about what we have seen. There is more you need to know," I told him. "Can you gather keyboard members in the small conference room? What I am about to share should not be discussed in the full board yet." Gerald raised an eyebrow but nodded. Within minutes, he had assembled Diane Miller, Frank Roberts, and 2 other board members who had always been fair and objective in their oversight. Once the door closed, I laid out the full extent of Nathan's planned post-acquisition restructuring, including the elimination of hundreds of jobs that had not been disclosed to the board. We were told any reductions would be minimal and focused on redundant positions, Diane said, clearly disturbed. "This is far more extensive. There is another matter we need to discuss," I said, glancing at my watch. "Representatives from Bradley Investment Group will be arriving shortly. They have expressed interest in taking a significant position in the company." Frank Roberts leaned forward. "Bradley has been acquiring our shares for months. We estimated they controlled about 12%. Their actual position is closer to 16%, I corrected him. And they have secured commitments for an additional 14%. The implications were clear. Combined with the shares controlled by these board members and my own equity, we could potentially challenge Nathan's control of the company. "Are you suggesting a proxy fight?" Gerald asked carefully. "I am suggesting we consider all options to protect the company's future," I replied. "Nathan's actions have put the Morgan acquisition at risk, along with the jobs of hundreds of employees and our reputation in the industry." Before anyone could respond, Walter received a text. "The Bradley representatives have arrived," he announced. As we returned to the main boardroom, I saw Jordan Bradley and 2 associates entering, carrying leather portfolios. Nathan's face showed confusion, then alarm as he recognized the investment group's leader. Gerald called the meeting back to order. "Before we continue with the Morgan acquisition discussion, we have visitors who have requested time to address the board on an urgent matter." Jordan stepped forward confidently. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bradley Investment Group currently holds 16.4% of this company's outstanding shares. We are here to express our serious concerns about the current leadership and direction of the company." Nathan stood up. This is completely inappropriate. This meeting was called specifically to discuss the Morgan acquisition, which appears to be in jeopardy due to your actions. Jordan countered smoothly. As significant shareholders, we have every right to address governance concerns. Gerald, ever the diplomat, intervened. Let us hear what Mr. Bradley has to say. Jordan continued. We have been monitoring this company's performance and governance for some time. Recent events, including the sudden termination of a key executive in the middle of a major acquisition, have accelerated our timeline for action. He opened his portfolio and distributed documents to each board member. We are prepared to increase our investment substantially, but only under specific conditions regarding leadership and corporate governance. Nathan scoffed. This is a transparent attempt to capitalize on a temporary misunderstanding. Is that what you call altering acquisition terms without board approval? Jordan asked pointedly. Or terminating the executive who structured the deal without proper cause? While Nathan struggled to respond, Jordan's associates distributed additional documents. We have prepared a comprehensive proposal for the board's consideration, including a significant capital injection that would fund expansion into markets the company has been unable to pursue due to financial constraints. The board members leafed through the proposals with evident interest. The company had been seeking additional capital for expansion for months without success. Jordan then delivered his masterstroke. Central to our proposal is a leadership transition. We have full confidence in Lourdes Martinez and believe she should assume the role of CEO. The room erupted in exclamations and questions. Nathan shouted over the noise. This is absurd. You cannot walk in here and dictate leadership changes. Actually, Jordan replied calmly, with the shares we control and the commitments we have secured, we can force a special shareholder meeting to vote on exactly that. Walter chose this moment to interject. There is another matter the board should consider. He produced a document from his briefcase. In reviewing the acquisition paperwork, we discovered something quite remarkable. He placed the document on the table, pointing to a signature page. This is the master agreement for the Morgan acquisition, signed by Nathan Pierce yesterday. If you turn to Section 12, subsection C, you will find the leadership transition protocols. Board members flipped to the indicated section. As you can see, Walter continued, this section specifically authorizes Lourdes Martinez to represent the company in all transition matters with full executive authority, regardless of any changes in employment status. Nathan grabbed the document, scanning it frantically. I never agreed to this. Your signature on page 43 indicates otherwise, Walter noted. Right above the paragraph stating that the signatory has read and understood all provisions, I watched as the realization dawned on Nathan's face. In his haste to claim credit for my work, he had signed a document without thoroughly reviewing it. The clause I had inserted months ago as protection was now the key to my return. This is a legal trick, Nathan sputtered. This is due diligence, Gerald corrected him, something you apparently failed to exercise. Jordan seized the moment. In light of these revelations, we are prepared to execute our investment agreement immediately, conditional upon Miss Martinez assuming leadership. Gerald turned to the company's general counsel. Is the clause in the acquisition agreement legally binding? After a painful pause, the lawyer nodded. If Mr. Pierce signed it, yes. It would give Miss Martinez authority over the acquisition regardless of employment status. And combined with the investment group's share position, Diane added, we have a clear path forward. Nathan made one last desperate attempt. Jeff Wilson controls 22% of the company. He will never support this coup. At that moment, my phone buzzed with a text. I allowed myself a small smile as I read it. Actually, I spoke with Jeff this morning. As the company's founder, he is deeply concerned about the direction you have taken his legacy. He has agreed to support a leadership change. The blood drained from Nathan's face as he realized he had lost his most powerful ally. The boardroom fell completely silent as everyone processed the seismic shift that had just occurred. Jordan slid a document across the table toward me. The buyout agreement, with Nathan's own signature authorizing the leadership transition, All it needs now is board approval. This is not how corporate governance works, Nathan protested weakly. You cannot orchestrate a takeover in an afternoon. Actually, Gerald said, when the CEO has violated multiple governance principles and endangered a critical acquisition, the board has a fiduciary duty to take immediate action. He looked around the table. I move that we accept the Bradley investment proposal and appoint Lourdes Martinez as interim CEO, effective immediately. Diane quickly seconded the motion. All in favor? Gerald asked. One by one, hands rose around the table. Nathan watched in disbelief as his support evaporated. When the votes were counted, the result was unequivocal. 8 in favor, 2 abstentions, and only Nathan and James opposed. The motion carries, Gerald announced formally. Lourdes Martinez is appointed interim CEO effective immediately. Nathan, please surrender your company credentials and clear out your office by the end of the day. As security was called to escort Nathan and James from the boardroom, I turned to the video screen where the Morgan executives had witnessed everything. I apologize for the disruption, I said sincerely. I can assure you that the original terms we agreed upon will be honored fully. Would you be comfortable proceeding with the acquisition as planned? Susan Taylor smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We would be delighted to move forward with you at the helm, Lourdes. In fact, I think our companies will work together even better than originally anticipated. As the meeting concluded, I glanced at my watch. It was exactly 2 p.m. In just 7 hours, I had gone from terminated employee to CEO and major shareholder of the company. The real work was just beginning. The next 24 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. After the board vote, legal documents were processed to formalize my position as interim CEO. The Bradley investment was expedited, providing the company with a substantial capital infusion that immediately stabilized our stock price after news of the leadership change broke. My first official act was calling Ashley to my new office, the same one Nathan had occupied just hours earlier. I owe you everything, I told her as she entered tentatively. Without your help, none of this would have been possible. Ashley smiled. I always knew you would find a way to fight back. What he did was wrong. How would you feel about a promotion? I asked. Director of Executive Operations. You would oversee the entire executive floor. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? That is 2 levels above my current position, and well-deserved, I assured her. Your loyalty and quick thinking saved this company from disaster. After Ashley left to process her promotion, I called an emergency executive meeting. The tension was palpable as the remaining executives filed in, uncertain of their futures in the new regime. I know many of you were caught in the middle of a difficult situation, I began, looking around the table. Some of you knew what Nathan was planning. Others were kept in the dark. Today, we start with a clean slate. I laid out my immediate priorities, finalizing the Morgan acquisition under the original terms, reversing the planned mass layoffs Nathan had quietly set in motion, and establishing a new culture of transparency and collaboration. Just as the meeting was concluding, my assistant announced that Nathan was demanding to see me. I agreed to meet him, with Walter present as a precaution. Nathan stormed in, still projecting confidence despite his fall. You will not get away with this. I have already spoken with our major clients. They are nervous about the sudden change. Actually, I replied calmly, I have personally called each of our top 10 clients this afternoon. 9 expressed relief that the acquisition is proceeding as originally structured. Only Travis at Westlake seemed concerned, but that is because you apparently told him the acquisition was in trouble. Nathan's bluster deflated slightly. The board made a hasty decision they will come to regret. Perhaps, but in the meantime, our legal team has discovered some interesting irregularities in the company's financial records under your leadership. Specifically, expense allocations that do not match approved budgets. The color drained from Nathan's face. Those were approved internally, but not by the board, I noted, and not in accordance with our governance policies. Walter spoke up. We are still reviewing the records, but there appear to be significant discrepancies that could require reporting to regulatory authorities. What do you want? Nathan asked, his voice suddenly subdued. A clean transition, I replied. No attempts to undermine the company with clients or partners, no disparaging statements to the press. In return, we will conduct our financial review discreetly and give you the opportunity to address any irregularities before involving outside authorities. Nathan seemed to age years in minutes as he realized the precariousness of his position. Fine, he said, finally. But this company was on a trajectory I built. Remember that when you are enjoying your temporary victory. After he left, I turned my attention to the Morgan acquisition. The final papers needed to be signed, and the transition team assembled. By late afternoon, the Morgan executives arrived for an in-person meeting to rebuild trust and finalize details. We were concerned when we heard about the leadership change, Susan admitted during our private conversation. But after seeing how you handled the situation, we are even more confident in our decision to partner with your company. As we signed the final acquisition papers, I could not help but reflect on the irony. Nathan's attempt to push me out had resulted in my ascending to the very position he had feared I might eventually claim. The next morning brought another surprise. Several executives who had aligned themselves with Nathan approached me with offers of information in exchange for keeping their positions. Nathan was planning to eliminate entire divisions after the acquisition, one revealed, not for redundancy or efficiency, but to consolidate power with executives loyal to him. Another produced documents showing Nathan had intentionally misrepresented financial projections to the board, inflating short-term gains at the expense of long-term stability. This information allowed me to quickly identify the areas most at risk and implement protective measures. I spent the day meeting with department heads, reassuring teams, and beginning to reshape the company's structure to better align with our actual strengths and market position. By the end of the week, I had assembled a new executive team, elevating talented individuals who had been overlooked during Nathan's tenure. Tara from finance was promoted to CFO, replacing James, who had resigned rather than face an internal investigation into his role in the financial irregularities. There was one major hurdle left. Westlake Industries, our largest client, was threatening to take their business elsewhere due to concerns about the leadership change. Their CEO, Travis Barker, had been close with Nathan for years. I requested an in-person meeting and flew across the country to their headquarters. Instead of a defensive stance, I took a radical approach to transparency. I understand your concerns, I told Travis across the conference table. But I would like to show you exactly what happened and why the change was necessary. I presented the original acquisition terms alongside Nathan's altered version, the financial projections he had misrepresented, and the layoff plans he had hidden from the board. I am not asking you to take my word over his, I said. I am asking you to look at the evidence and make your own judgment about which leadership approach better serves your interests as our most valued client. Travis studied the documents in silence. Finally, he looked up. Nathan told me a very different story. This is disturbing. I understand you had a personal relationship with him, I acknowledged, but my commitment to you is simple. Complete transparency, honest projections, and a partnership that benefits both our companies. By the end of the meeting, not only had Travis agreed to maintain our existing contract, but he had also expressed interest in expanding our services to additional divisions of Westlake. As I flew home that evening, I received news that our stock price had increased by 15% since the announcement of the leadership change and successful Morgan acquisition. The market was responding positively to the new direction. 7 days after my termination, I stood in front of the company's employees for the first time as CEO. The auditorium was packed, with hundreds more watching the live stream from offices across the country. 1 week ago, I experienced what many of you fear. I began honestly. I was escorted out of this building after years of dedication. But today, I am not here to celebrate a personal victory. I am here to share a vision for what this company can become when we value integrity, transparency, and the contributions of every single person. The applause that followed told me that the healing had begun. 1 month after the dramatic boardroom confrontation, I sat in my office reviewing the company's first quarter results under my leadership. The Morgan acquisition was proceeding smoothly, with integration teams from both companies working collaboratively. Our stock price had stabilized at 20% above its pre-acquisition level, reflecting market confidence in the new direction. The transition had not been without challenges. Some employees remained loyal to Nathan, viewing the leadership change with skepticism. Others were fearful that more disruption might follow. I had made it my personal mission to meet with every department, listening to concerns and addressing fears directly. Perhaps most surprising was my decision regarding the executives who had participated in Nathan's scheme. While James had chosen to resign, several lower-level conspirators had come forward with valuable information. Rather than pursuing wholesale terminations, I offered a path to redemption for those willing to embrace a new culture of transparency. People make mistakes, I explained to Gerald when he questioned this approach, but our company cannot afford to lose institutional knowledge and talent. I believe in second chances when they are earned through changed behavior. This philosophy was put to the test when Nathan requested a meeting, 1 month after his departure. Against Walter's advice, I agreed to see him alone. Nathan looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a somber self-awareness that seemed foreign on his usually confident face. "I have been doing a lot of thinking," he began, uncharacteristically humble. "What I did was wrong, not just to you, but to the company and everyone who works here." "What do you want, Nathan?" I asked directly. "A chance to make amends," he replied. "I know I cannot return as CEO. I would not even ask for an executive position. But I built relationships with key clients over years that could be valuable during this transition." I studied him carefully, looking for signs of manipulation. "You want a consulting role. I want to fix what I broke," he said. "The reality is, I was terrified of you, Lourdes. Your intelligence, your relationships with the board, your obvious leadership abilities, I saw you as a threat instead of an asset. It was my insecurity that led to all of this." His admission surprised me. "Why should I trust you now?" "You should not," he answered honestly. "Not without verification, boundaries, and supervision. I am not asking for trust. I am asking for a chance to contribute positively to the company I still care about." After careful consideration, I made one of the most controversial decisions of my early tenure. Nathan was brought back as a special advisor, working under strict oversight, with no direct authority or access to sensitive information. His role was specifically limited to maintaining client relationships during the transition period. "You are either incredibly compassionate or making a huge mistake," Patricia told me when I informed her of the decision. "Perhaps both," I acknowledged. "But sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is offering redemption to someone who wronged you." The real work of transformation began with restoring the company's original mission. Under Nathan's leadership, we had drifted from our founding principles of innovative solutions and employee empowerment, becoming increasingly focused on short-term profits at any cost. I worked with the founding team to re-establish our core values, creating a new governance structure that emphasized transparency and ethical decision-making. The changes were not merely cosmetic. We implemented concrete policies, ensuring board oversight of major decisions and protection for employees who reported concerns. For the employees who had remained loyal during the turbulent transition, I introduced a profit-sharing program that Nathan had repeatedly blocked. Those who had helped expose the misconduct received special recognition, though many preferred to remain anonymous. Patricia agreed to join our board of directors, bringing her wealth of industry experience and ethical leadership. Her presence helped reassure investors that the governance issues were being addressed at the highest levels. The Morgan acquisition, which had nearly fallen apart under Nathan's machinations, became a case study in successful integration. By honoring the original commitments and maintaining leadership continuity, we achieved the projected synergies months ahead of schedule. During a private dinner with Susan from Morgan, she confessed, "When we first saw the leadership change, we were prepared to walk away. But watching how you handled everything actually increased our confidence in the partnership. It taught me something important," I replied. Sometimes the greatest challenges reveal the true character of an organization. One afternoon, while reviewing quarterly projections with Tara, our new CFO, I was struck by a realization about Nathan's downfall. His insecurity was ultimately what destroyed him, I observed. He was so afraid of losing power that he made increasingly desperate moves to maintain control. The irony is that he was respected before all this, Tara noted. No one was trying to take his position until he started manipulating people. That is the lesson I try to remember every day in this role, I told her. True leadership is not about control or self-preservation. It is about creating an environment where everyone can contribute their best. 6 months after my dramatic return to the company, I stood before a packed auditorium of employees for our annual all-hands meeting. The company had not only survived the leadership crisis, but was thriving, with record growth and improved employee satisfaction scores. 6 months ago, I stood in this same spot after experiencing one of the most difficult days of my professional life. I began. That morning, I received a termination email at 6:59 a.m. By 2 p.m., I was signing papers to become CEO. But this story is not about a personal victory. I looked out at the faces of people who had weathered the storm alongside me. It is about what happens when we refuse to accept injustice, when we stand up for what is right even when it seems impossible. Every one of you who stayed true to your principles during that difficult time contributed to where we are today. I continued. The lesson I learned is that preparation and integrity matter more than power. Nathan had the title and authority, but he lost sight of the responsibility that comes with leadership. True power comes not from a position, but from earning trust and creating value for others. As we move forward, I make this commitment to you. I will lead with transparency and integrity. I will value your contributions and create an environment where you can do your best work. And I will never forget that my role is not to control this company, but to serve its mission and its people. The standing ovation that followed filled me with both pride and humility. The journey from terminated executive to CEO had been extraordinary, but the true measure of success would be in the company we built together from this moment forward. Looking back at that fateful morning, when I received the termination email at 6:59 a.m., I never could have predicted where I would be just 6 months later. The path had been painful and challenging, but it had led to a place where I could create positive change on a scale I had never imagined possible. The company was not just surviving, it was being reborn. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to fight back against unfair treatment? What strategies did you use to overcome the challenge? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember to like this video if you found it inspiring. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming adversity in the workplace, and share it with someone who might need encouragement during a difficult professional situation. Thank you for listening, and I hope this story gives you courage to stand up for what is right in your own life.